we are really doing is perpetuating our pain in the next generation. A mistake isn't resolved until we evolve in our understanding to the point where we can garner the insight that is available from the experience. When that point is reached, what we experienced is no longer a mistake or painful because of what we have learned. However, until that point is reached, if ever, we will feel compelled to save others from the painful lessons of our mistakes, even to the point of beating it into them, for their own good, of course. By using pain, either emotional or physical, as a means to save others from our mistakes, in effect what we are really doing is creating a cycle of fear. We ensure that our limited level of understanding and insight will be maintained in them because fear is a contracting force that stifles the learning process. In a very real way, we inflict the pain of our unresolved mistakes on our children just as our parents inflicted the pain of their unresolved mistakes on us. And it goes on generation after generation until someone decides to use their creative powers to break the cycle, to operate out of this belief in evolution so that we can naturally learn from the choices that we make. We have to first change our definitions of what constitutes a mistake. It is precisely these kinds of beliefs that act as mental blocks to perceive a more satisfying way of living. Mistakes are virtually synonymous with pain. We can find any number of ways to avoid acknowledging a mistake so we don't have to confront the pain, and in the process we cut ourselves off from what we need to know to grow, expand, and improve our lives. Even when we make a mistake where we supposedly knew better, if we really knew better, then we wouldn't have made the choices that we did that resulted in an outcome we define as a mistake. So we can assume that there is something inside of us that conflicts with our better judgment that has more power to influence our behavior. It isn't any less possible to change our definition of what constitutes a mistake than it is to intensify the emotional energy behind an insult, as in the example. To change these definitions requires learning some techniques in mental energy management to de-energize or draw the negatively charged energy out of them. By doing so, we will allow ourselves to learn from all our experiences instead of hiding from them, feeling pain, or punishing ourselves in some way. Without the effects of these self-defeating definitions of mistakes, it is much easier to objectively monitor our progress toward the fulfillment of some goal. If we find our behavior inconsistent with the steps to achieving our goals, it would tell us that our beliefs are not in harmony with those steps or the goal itself, or that we don't have the appropriate resources. In any case, it is much easier to identify what we need to learn to accomplish our objective. The benefits of learning how to manage mental energy. Increased sense of security and confidence. You will develop a sense of security and confidence knowing that you can confront conditions as they exist, identify what you need to learn to operate most effectively, and learn it. What better way to develop a sense of security than by learning how to develop the ability to adapt to the prevailing conditions to fulfill your needs satisfactorily? In the mental environment, the memories of our experiences don't change over time, but the physical environment where our goals are fulfilled does. It is constantly moving forward, offering us new conditions, which, in turn, offer us different possibilities and opportunities, if we are open to being able to perceive them. What better form of goal achievement than to be able to change our mental perspective at will, to be able to perceive these new conditions and use our imaginations creatively to determine the most appropriate set of steps to fulfill our needs or achieve our goals, even if we have never actually taken those steps before. For a truly successful trader, this form of thinking is essential. The possibilities of the type of movement the markets can display are almost endless because of the diverse number of forces affecting it. All of us have this tendency to mentally lock ourselves into only a very limited number of those ways. And when the market doesn't conform to our preconceived mental image, we make up the difference with distortions and illusions and suffer the consequences later. Trading doesn't have to be painful and devoid of fun. We make it that way for ourselves because of our mental inflexibility and inability to adapt. Increased levels of satisfaction. As long as we are alive, we will have needs, and as long as we have needs, we are not whole the way we are. Our needs compel us to interact with the environment to achieve this state of wholeness. Growing into this state of wholeness requires that we keep on learning. To keep on learning, we need to adapt. Learning is a primary function of our existence. When we fulfill this function, we are rewarded with feelings of happiness, well-being and satisfaction, all of which are byproducts of the quality of our experiences with the outer environment and a function of how much we have learned. The antithesis of learning is resistance. When we resist what is being offered by the environment in the way of lessons, learning, and change, we experience stress. Stress is the opposite of the sense of well-being, happiness, and excitement that we feel when we are learning. If we refuse to adapt, we shut down the learning process. The quality of our experiences deteriorates because our relationship with the outer environment deteriorates. The outer environment keeps on changing, while we remain unchanged, resulting in less of a correspondence between what is out there and what we know. Ultimately, we end up punishing ourselves for our resistance to adapt because what we experience is pain, disappointment, stress, anxiety, and dissatisfaction, which are all byproducts of our lack of insight, understanding, and what we won't allow ourselves to do because of fear. Increased intuition. As you gain in your confidence to change the inside to experience a different outside, you will also increase your ability to confront difficult issues that all of us would have a tendency to avoid. Instead of confronting, we learn a number of avoidance techniques like alcohol, drugs, distortions, rationalizations, or even wishing and hoping, all of which can result in painful forced awarenesses. We eventually have to confront these issues anyway because they rarely, if ever, just go away. The longer we wait, the worse the conditions usually get, making it increasingly more difficult to resolve. However, there is another less obvious problem with avoidance, especially with respect to wishing and hoping. A true intuitive impulse, a deeper level of knowledge and wisdom that will indicate the next most appropriate step to take, that will always be in our best interests, feels very much like wishing and hoping. In other words, it is very difficult to distinguish between the two, making it very easy to mix them up, which is one of the reasons why we find it so difficult to trust our intuition. The way you can know for sure that you are getting a true intuitive impulse is to clear out of your mental environment anything that would cause you to wish and hope that something will happen instead of confronting the issue head on to find out what needs to be done. You can wish and hope that the market will come back, or you can cut your loss and make yourself ready to take the next opportunity. To be able to cut your loss and be ready to take the next opportunity requires that you change anything in your mental environment that would cause you to avoid confrontation and consequently wish and hope. The less cause you have for wishing and hoping that something will happen, the more you will know that when you get that certain feeling, it is a true intuitive impulse, and the more confidence you will have to follow it. Intuition will always guide you in the most appropriate way to fulfill your needs. Just so there is no misunderstanding here, I am not stating that there is anything inherently wrong with wishing and hoping. There are some ways in which wishing and hoping can be very useful. As traders, however, we cannot afford the luxury of wishing and hoping because it puts us in a passive relationship with the markets. When we wish and hope, we are shifting responsibility onto the markets for making something happen instead of confronting the conditions and doing something about it ourselves. If we find ourselves wishing and hoping, it is an excellent indication that we don't know what is going on and as a result need to get out of the markets until we do. Wisdom. When we step through our fears to break some cycle of frustration and dissatisfaction or change the polarity of a painful memory to break a cycle of pain, we gain in wisdom because we learn all sides of an issue. Wisdom is not afraid, angry, intolerant, or prejudiced because there is a deep level of understanding, confidence, and trust, all coming from having experienced the full range of possibilities from extreme negative to increasingly greater degrees of positive. If we have experienced only the negative side of a certain type of experience, we feel fear. If we have experienced only the positive, never having had a painful experience in certain area, we won't have that particular fear, but we do develop an intolerance or even a disdain for anyone who has had a negative experience. This intolerance stems from our own underlying fear of vulnerability. For instance, it is clear that the negative exists in the environment as a possibility, but since it has never happened to us, we either don't understand their fear or don't want to confront any information that would indicate the same possibilities for a painful experience also exist for us. Anyone who has truly transcended a fear doesn't look down upon those who haven't because they don't have anything to fear. When we step through some fear to experience other possibilities, not only do we give ourselves more choices, we also gain in wisdom. Wisdom is the byproduct that results when we retain a distinction about the nature of the environment without the negative energy or fear associated with that distinction. Wisdom is ultimately the silver lining in every dark cloud. However, to gain this wisdom we have to actively change our negatives into positives, because if we are offered a positive experience in an area where we have only experienced the negative, we wouldn't believe it. Actually, we couldn't believe it, because we wouldn't have the mental framework to accept it for what it is. The environment will be as we perceive it, and the way we perceive information and events is controlled by the energy already inside of us, unless it is a first-time experience. When we don't actively work at turning our negatives into positives, we just stay angry and afraid. It's our choice. We were all given the gift of creativity and the free will to think any way in which we choose, and we can use our thoughts to change the quality of our lives, if we want to. Chapter 14. Techniques for Effecting Change. This chapter offers various techniques for effecting change. Also included are various exercises to implement these changes. Directing a conscious shift in belief systems. The conscious mind, that part of us that is aware of our surroundings and what we are thinking at any given moment, can generate thoughts outside of the framework of our beliefs or belief systems. In other words, we can ask questions about the validity or usefulness of any belief and purposefully direct our attention to any area where we might discover something more useful or better suited to the conditions. Any new knowledge comes from those who question the status quo and have a willingness to go beyond and a willingness to accept the next answer. I know this is probably going to sound overly simplistic to most readers, and it is also something everybody already knows, but not everybody knows it within the context of changing beliefs. The wanting to is the how. To identify or change anything in the mental environment requires that you want to, because to want something you have to think about it, and when we think about something, we are generating thought energy. This is the same energy that our beliefs, memories, and associations are composed of, and, as such, thoughts have the power to change, reorganize, add to, detract from, or change the polarity of anything in the mental environment. In essence, you can use our thoughts to create a new identity because we want to. Each choice we make on a conscious level, even just to choose to redirect our thoughts from an inappropriate belief, relative to our needs now, will start to make a neurological change in the electrical circuitry of our brain. If you go as far as to make a choice that is inconsistent with a belief you want to decharge and then act out of that belief, it will eventually lose its power and consequently lose its potential to affect our behavior. It is important for you to understand that beliefs cannot be destroyed. Once we have formed one, it will be with us for the rest of our lives. However, we can draw all the energy out of them. For example, a pile of wood set on fire will release the energy of the wood into the atmosphere as heat. The wood will be transformed into ashes. The ashes do not have the potential to produce any heat and, thus, will have little if any effect on the environment. Yet the ashes still exist. The energized beliefs work the same way. They will always exist but no longer have any effect on our perception of information or our behavior. Many of us once believed in the tooth fairy and the bogeyman in the closet. Eventually these beliefs just naturally collapsed as we learned more about the nature of the environment. Up to that point, however, they definitely had an effect on our perception of information and behavior. Now, we can say I remember when I used to believe that. To remember that we used to believe something means that the belief still exists, it just no longer has any power in our mental system. Each belief you identify will form a comfort zone. The boundaries of this comfort zone are set by the limitations inherent within any belief that make up the zone. All definitions set boundary tines and make distinctions. Each belief is our truth about reality. Beliefs define not only our environment, but also who we are in relation to that environment. These definitions establish the amount of tolerance for awareness that we have for what exists in both the internal and external environment. For example, do you have a belief that would allow for the possibility of the market doing anything at any given moment? If not, what do you believe can't happen? If what you believe can't happen did happen, how long would it take you to be able to recognize it, if at all? Notice the boundary lines and awareness created by the structure of the belief. There is one thing you should keep in mind as you learn to change your beliefs to be more reflective of your intents and goals. With all change there is struggle. Volcanoes, childbirth, social revolution, wind, rain, and waves are all examples of the violent nature of the forces of change. That is why so many people find it difficult to be creative. We are attracted and compelled toward creativity, on the one hand, because it is an inherent part of our nature. However, on the other hand, we don't want to confront the conflict and ensuing struggle between the old and the new. It is essentially the same when you change a belief. There will be some conflict or some degree of uncomfortableness as you move from one set of beliefs to another. However, the uncomfortableness does pass, and just like anything else, the more you do it, the easier it gets, until it becomes a learned skill that you can use just like any other that is a part of who you are. Exercise to identify conflicting beliefs. Set a timer for 10 minutes. Write a series of statements that begin with I am. Write as fast as you can and let every thought come to your conscious attention. It is extremely important that you do not censor any statements, especially the contradictory ones. At the end of the 10 minutes, look at the list and cross out everything that is a fact. For example, you would cross out statements such as I am a man/woman, I am blue-eyed, I am brown-haired. All the statements that remain are the beliefs you are looking for. The beliefs that contradict each other are of particular importance. Contradictory beliefs cancel your energy because you have a built-in mental conflict between the validity of one belief expressing itself only at the direct expense of another belief. What are some examples of conflicting or contradictory beliefs? I have to win / I may be undeserving. I am a winner / I am a loser. I am successful / I've missed my chance to be successful. I deserve more / I'm guilty. I am a perfectionist. I believe humans are inherently imperfect. I am trusting. I am untrustworthy, or people are generally untrustworthy. I believe there is no middle ground of satisfaction between winning and failure. I am pleased with myself and my progress. I am honest. I am dishonest, or people are generally dishonest. I believe working is the honest way of making money. I believe trading is easy money, not work. Asking yourself questions. Here are some questions you can ask yourself that will help you to identify some beliefs that may argue against your giving yourself more money. What do you believe about guilt? How do you know when to feel guilty? Under what conditions would you not feel guilty, even if someone else wanted you to? Is it possible to transfer those same standards to areas where you would feel guilty? What would stop you? Who or what out of your past says it is wrong and you can't do that? Is their assessment of reality any more valid than yours? If so, why? Do you find these beliefs useful? If so, in what ways? Do you find them limiting? If so, in what ways? If you could identify and change the experience that created the belief, how would you change it? What would stop you from changing it? For the following questions you can substitute the words as true for the words do you believe. What do you believe about competition? What do you believe about taking money from other people as a result of your superior trading skills? What do you believe about losses? What do you believe about other people's opinions? When are they valid? When aren't they valid? What do you believe about being wrong? By answering these questions, you will begin to gain a sense of your own particular behavior and the range of choices you allow for yourself, or do not allow for yourself, as a result of your beliefs. Sometimes it is easier to identify a belief by trying to notice what you specifically believe is not true. You could also look at your beliefs as if they belong to someone else. If they did belong to someone else, think of an experience in which this other person responded to certain life situations in very typical ways, because of your beliefs. Then think of ways he or she could respond if he or she had different beliefs. When you discover some beliefs that aren't particularly useful or are inconsistent with your goals, then use an affirmation or collapsing technique to decharge the energy out of it. Writing as a technique to effect change. Every movement we make alters the physical landscape in some way. The more dramatic or expressive our movements, the greater the alterations. By the same token, every thought alters the mental landscape in some way. The more expressive our thoughts, in other words, the more energy we generate in our willingness to think, the greater the potential to effect some change. The change comes from what we are willing to think. Wanting to direct your conscious thought process toward a specific intent is what affects this change. I have found writing is one of the most powerful tools available to focus my thinking and effect some change I desire. When we write, it is a physicalized version of what is going on inside of our mental environment. Your willingness to write about certain issues directs your attention and gives the rest of the parts of your mental environment instructions. What flows up or out of your consciousness is what is there. Once you find out what is there, you can then direct any changes by writing back instructions into the mental environment. This can be a very powerful technique, depending on how much power you put into it. If I were to do a schematic of the process, it would look something like this. Consciousness to mental environment, instructions for certain information. The information flows to consciousness, maybe not right away. Consciousness physicalizes the information by writing it. This makes it real and tangible. Consciousness becomes aware of the information, self-discovery. Consciousness makes the connections between the nature of the information and the life conditions one has been experiencing. Consciousness assesses the current structure of the mental environment for its usefulness. Consciousness wants to create new conditions. Consciousness asks, what beliefs do I need as resources to be more effective or create the conditions I desire? This is the beauty and essence of the creative process, to ask yourself a question and wait for the answer to pop into your consciousness or allow yourself to be directed to the answer. Consciousness will know when it has found the most appropriate answer because it will ring true in your mind or you will feel the truth of it in your body. Consciousness then formulates these new awarenesses into instructions for change. Then consciousness writes these changes back into the mental environment, giving yourself instructions to accept these new awarenesses as truth. The act of writing forces us to focus our thoughts in a manner that is consistent with what we want to create, and those thoughts alter the mental landscape. An exercise to develop self-discipline. Self-discipline is a word used to describe a process of learning how to take conscious control of your actions. It is not a personality trait or something you are born with. It is a specific thought methodology, a mental resource, that allows you to change a belief or belief system when it is in conflict with some goal or objective. Self-discipline is a more direct method of effecting some change because you would be purposefully acting in a manner that is in direct conflict with whatever you want to change. So I would define self-discipline as willfully behaving outside of the boundaries of some belief, dealing with the emotional discomfort your actions will produce, to accomplish a certain goal or task that is inconsistent with that belief. If you work outside of that belief long enough, it will eventually de-energize. The rate at which the underlying belief will de-energize is really not a function of time but rather intensity. In other words, the greater the intensity of our willingness and resolve, the faster the conflicting belief will lose its power. For example, let's say you want to quit smoking or lose weight. These are conscious goals. Your beliefs, at least some of them, will be in conflict with these goals. The belief system supporting the smoker definition will probably have a great deal of power in your mental system. You can gauge the power of these beliefs or any beliefs by paying attention to how much discomfort and resistance you feel when you attempt to act, a conscious decision, in a way that is inconsistent with them. It is a very difficult thing to do. It's as if beliefs take on a life of their own and demand expression both in our thoughts and behavior. You can change these or any other definitions of yourself. However, you must first identify them and then determine how useful they are in helping you get what you want. You could ask yourself, is this belief a resource or obstacle to the successful fulfillment of my goal? One way you can change these definitions is to build a mental resource for the sole purpose of changing beliefs that are not useful. I am going to call this mental resource self-discipline. Here is an exercise that will help you learn specifically how to develop and use self-discipline in your life. The purpose of this exercise is to help you learn how to use your mind in different ways. You'll be training your mind to stay positively focused on what you consciously want. You will also learn how to gauge internal resistance from belief systems, and how to build mental resources for taking conscious control of your life. 1. Make a list of several things you dislike doing, feel you can't do, or would like to stop doing, or some things you have never done before and think you might enjoy. You could start a jogging or exercise program or take out the garbage on a regular basis, for example. 2. Once you have your list, look it over and pick a task that has a very low priority in your life or one of the least important items. 3. Next, tell yourself in the most positive way that doing this new task you have consciously decided upon is something you now want in your life. Don't say you are going to try and do it. A commitment to try to fulfill a goal is not strong enough. 4. Set up a rigid schedule for yourself to accomplish this new goal. 5. With each attempt to adhere to your schedule, keep track of your thought process or stream of thoughts by writing them down. At this point you might be saying to yourself, how do I keep track of my thought process? In the physical environment we are constantly being bombarded with all sorts of information competing for our attention. We are aware of many things going on around us simultaneously. In effect, our consciousness is split in many different directions at the same moment. Use a part of your consciousness to pay attention to what is going on inside of your head. You will be using a part of yourself to monitor your stream of thoughts as if they didn't belong to you. If you can temporarily act as if you were monitoring someone else's stream of thoughts, it may be much easier to gather the information you need to make this exercise meaningful. 6. As you attempt to adhere to your schedule, do you find yourself experiencing resistance, excuses, or rationalizations? If so, notice how these thoughts divert your conscious attention away from your goal. This is a classic example of a conflict between the conscious goal you have set for yourself and your belief system that doesn't have a belief or definition that corresponds with what you consciously want to do. 7. At this point you need to redirect your attention to the task you have chosen for yourself. What is most important is that you understand the necessity of directing as much energy toward the fulfillment of your goal as possible. You will have to generate more power toward keeping your attention focused on your goal than the amount of energy being directed through the beliefs that distract your attention away from your goal. However, there is one aspect to this exercise I must caution you about. Redirecting your attention away from what distracts you to what you consciously want does not mean that you suppress or deny what may be distracting you. Acceptance and acknowledgement of what exists within you will allow you to work with it. Suppression and denial require a lot of energy. This has the effect of supporting the beliefs you are trying to suppress. Be gentle with yourself. Each time you set out to accomplish your task, and do so, you create a resource that helps you do it again. Each success will draw some energy away from the beliefs that acted as obstacles. With each success you will also be allocating energy to the new definition of yourself. This new definition allows you to start the task each time with greater and greater ease until the definition becomes a fundamental part of your mental system. When that happens, your actions concerning this task will seem automatic. The most important aspect of this exercise is the experience you gain in understanding the process of changing beliefs. Each time you set out to change a belief or set of beliefs, you'll gain a resource that enables you to do it again. Each success you experience will help develop another set of beliefs that allow you to change more beliefs if and when it suits your purposes. You will establish a new definition of yourself that says, I believe I can identify and change any belief about myself that may be in conflict with my conscious goals. For this exercise to be effective, you must keep a few rules in mind. First, start the exercise with a task or goal that is truly insignificant and has little meaning in your life. The objective of the exercise is learning how to manipulate your inner environment consciously and direct your conscious focus of attention. The goal you decide upon as the object of the exercise should not have a lot of value attached to the outcome. If it does, that would be an indication you may be taking on some very powerful and entrenched belief systems. This is something you definitely want to avoid until you have developed the necessary skills and resources. Then, recognize that from the moment we are born, we are taught how to manipulate the outer physical environment. However, you may not have the resources to be even minimally effective at manipulating the mental environment. As a result, it is extremely important that you do not judge your ability to execute the schedule you set up according to the standards of performance you expect of yourself in the physical environment. If you expect too much and judge your ability harshly, it will only negate your efforts and set up a fear and inadequacy cycle. The less you expect of yourself, the faster you will progress. An expectation can easily become a demand that it be fulfilled. Demands usually generate a certain amount of fear that the demands will not be met. When you are working in the inner environment, fear will always negate your positive efforts unless your intent is to identify the source of your fear. Finally, not having any expectations from your efforts to carry out your plan will also have the secondary benefit of helping you to learn to accept whatever you accomplish as being all right. Any step, no matter how small, is a step. Just deciding you want to do this exercise is significant, even if you don't follow through with it right away. You may come back to it someday when you have more of a sense of the power you will acquire from the ability to manipulate your inner environment consciously to be consistent with your goals. So, to keep yourself from having any expectation about how well you should do at this or any other exercise I offer you, I suggest you consider yourself an infant in a brand new environment. You will have to learn how to stand up before you can begin to walk or run. Self-hypnosis. Self-hypnosis is a relaxation technique that allows one to bypass the reasoning process of the conscious mind to make it easier to accept some message. So it is an excellent technique for establishing new beliefs or collapsing old beliefs. For those of you who are interested, I have a self-hypnosis tape specifically designed to make it easier to learn how to cut your losses, reverse yourself, trust your intuition, and value yourself more. For more information, you can contact me at Trading Behavior Dynamics Incorporated, in Chicago or through the publisher. Positive affirmations. When you are in a trade and start to experience anxiety about what is happening in the market, you will likely take those anxious thoughts and start running them through a negative loop, like thinking about money instead of the structure of the market or what the market is doing to you. Eventually you will run enough thought energy through your consciousness that it will cause you to act in a way that is not in your best interests. A positive affirmation will work the same way. Formulate a positive affirmation of some trait or characteristic of the way in which you want to be. For example, you may want to become a more patient person and wait for the market to give the signals to act. With an affirmation like I am becoming a more patient person every day, you will eventually become that person. In other words, we will behave in a manner that is consistent with the affirmation, if we run enough thought energy through that affirmation. Eventually, the affirmation becomes a belief with enough energy to affect our behavior. The following are affirmations that, once turned into beliefs, will be very effective resources in helping you to work in your inner environment. 1. All beliefs are about reality, and are not necessarily predominate. Characteristics of reality. I will examine and question my beliefs in relationship to their usefulness in achieving my goals. 2. I believe in the power of my conscious mind to make available to me all the information I need to know. 3. I have the power to change any belief in a way that would make it more useful in achieving my goals of happiness, harmony, financial wealth, and being more productive. 4. I believe I am free to change the way I feel about any past experience. 5. I believe I have the ability to examine the contents of my mind. 6. I trust that all my beliefs about the way I trade will become known to me. 7. I place no particular importance on these beliefs about trading other than the fact that they exist. 8. I have chosen these beliefs at certain points in my life and accepted them as true at the time. As I examine them, I realize that they may not be particularly useful or true for me now. I accept this and I feel free to change all those beliefs that are inconsistent with my current goals. 9. My first and immediate goal is to identify all my beliefs that may be in Conflict with my long-term objectives of underscore. 10. I trust myself to become consciously aware of these beliefs in many different ways. Once I become aware of these beliefs, I can just as easily let them go to make space for new beliefs that are more consistent with my current goals. 11. I believe that changing and expanding my awareness and comfort zones are a necessary aspect of my growth and survival, and I welcome these opportunities to identify old beliefs and consequently grow and expand. 12. I feel an intense desire to succeed and achieve my goal of. Consequently, I have an intense desire to clear my inner path of any resistance or obstructions that stand in the way of the fulfillment of my goal. Part 4. How to become a disciplined trader. Chapter 15. The psychology of price movement. My objective for this chapter is to break down and analyze the dynamics and psychology of price movement. First, at its most fundamental level, that of the individual trader. Then I will broaden the explanation by examining the behavior of traders collectively as a group. I want to demonstrate that, if you understand the psychological forces inherent within traders' actions, you can easily determine what they believe about the future by just observing what they do. Once you know what traders believe about the future, it's not that difficult to anticipate what they are likely to do next, under certain circumstances and conditions. What is really important about this insight is that it will help you to understand the distinctions between wishful thinking and the actual potential that exists for the market to move in any given direction. You will be learning to let the market tell you what to do by understanding the forces behind its behavior and then learning to differentiate between pure, uncontaminated market information and how that information is distorted once it starts doing something to you. The most fundamental component of the markets is traders. Keep in mind that traders are the only force that can act on prices to make them move. Everything else is secondary. What makes a market? Two traders willing to trade, one wanting to buy and one wanting to sell, who agree on a price and then make a trade. What does the last posted price represent? The last posted price is what someone was willing to pay and what someone was willing to sell for at the moment the two traders agreed on the trade. It reflects an agreement in present value between those traders acting at that price. What is the bid? A trader announcing the price at which he is willing to buy. What is the offer? A trader announcing the price at which he is willing to sell. How do traders make money? There are only two ways to play this game to make money. To buy at a price you believe is low relative to where you can sell it back at some future point in time. Or to sell at a price you believe is high relative to where you can buy it back at some future point in time. Now, let's take a look inside the pit to see what has to happen for prices to move off equilibrium and how this will tell us what traders believe. 98 to 18 the offer, sellers attempting to sell high. 98 to 17 equilibrium, the last price. 98 to 16 the bid, buyers attempting to buy low. Since the only object to trading is to make money, we can assume that a trader will not knowingly enter into a trade believing he is going to lose. And for a trade to exist requires two traders who agree on a price. However, from the moment two traders agree to the trade, they are both subjecting themselves to market risk. In other words, the next tick is going to make one of them a winner and the other a loser. Since we know that both traders want to win and neither trader wants to lose, we can assume that both traders have completely opposite beliefs about the future value of the contract. So for two traders to agree on a price and make a trade, they have to have diametrically opposing beliefs about the future. The buyer believes he is buying low relative to where he can sell back at some point in the future, and the seller believes he is selling high relative to where he can buy back at some point in the future. If the next tick is going to make one of them a winner and one a loser, we can assume that neither one of them believes he is going to be that loser. If the seller believed the next tick was going to be up, why wouldn't he have waited to sell it higher? The same is true for the buyer. That is the object of the game and the only way to make money. Basically, what we have is a situation where two opposing forces are clashing. Both believe they are right about the future, and only one side can profit at the direct expense of the other. If the last price of a bond future was 99 to 14, what has to happen for the price to move to 99 to 15? Very simply, some trader has to be willing to bid and pay higher than the last price. This means that relative to the last posted price, he has to be willing to do the opposite of buying low. Any trader or group of traders willing to buy high or sell low relative to the last posted price is very significant for several reasons. First, a trader willing to buy high or sell low instead of buy low or sell high has to have a stronger conviction in his belief in the future value, even if his conviction is out of panic. Second, he is making the last price a bottom. Third, he is aggressively taking the initiative and is making losers out of everyone who sold at the last price and deepen the losses of those who sold lower. Fourth, He is creating price movement that can possibly gather momentum if other traders perceive the new price as low relative to the future. This will also be true for the trader who is paying up to liquidate a position. On the other hand, the seller on the other side of his trade is being lured into the market by the attractiveness of the high price at which he can sell. He believes he is getting the edge. He is in fact selling high, but he is not creating movement or much of a possibility for momentum in his direction. He is picking a top and waiting for something to happen, hoping it won't go any higher. Now, what do the actions of the two traders represent about the market in its collective form? First, this trade tells us that nobody had a strong enough belief in the future value to risk selling it to him at the last price or lower. Second, nobody was aggressive enough to want to enter the market short or liquidate an existing long position by offering to sell it at the last price or lower. A consummated trade at the next higher level creates a new equilibrium. This new equilibrium makes winners out of all the buyers at the last level and losers of all the sellers at the last level. All of the losers at the last price level or lower would have to maintain a belief in the future value to stay in their position or demonstrate a conviction in this future value by adding on to their positions. This is because each new level the price is bid up makes it that much more attractive to them. If they believed it was high at lower levels, at each higher level, it's even a better trade. However, at the same time, each move the market makes against their position invalidates the seller's expectation of future value. Each move clearly demonstrates that the sellers are passive, that the buyers are the aggressors, and that the buyers have a greater potential to move the market in their direction. The fact that buyers are aggressively bidding up the price and paying more and more again tells the observer something. It tells him there aren't enough sellers to meet the buyer's demand for a trade at each new price level. If there is a limited supply of sellers, those traders wanting to buy will have to compete among one another for the limited number of sellers available willing to take the other side of the trade. Just observing this price action tells you that at the present moment, the momentum is in favor of the buyers. Prices would not be bid up unless there were fewer sellers in relation to the buyers. If traders continue to pay more and more, the price gets further away from old sellers. Eventually their belief in future value will erode, and one by one the sellers will join the existing pool of buyers competing against one another for the fewer and fewer traders willing to sell. As long as the ratio between buyers and sellers remains as I have just described, there is very little potential for downward price momentum to be established. Now what will start to tip the balance to cause the market to fall back? For one thing, old buyers will eventually take profits. When they do, they will be joining the existing pool of sellers, thereby increasing the number of traders available to sell. If a move gathers enough steam, it can become similar to a frenzied shark feeding. Eventually, prices will be driven way out of line with some economic factors other traders perceive as relevant, compelling them to enter the market in the opposite direction. If these new traders enter with enough force, it will likely cause old buyers to panic, adding to the downward momentum. Maybe you can visualize this back and forth action. When there are more sellers than there are buyers to take the other side of the trade, the balance will be tipped. Sellers will then aggressively offer to sell lower than the last price, responding to what they perceive as a limited number of buyers to take the other side of the trade. All price movement is a function of group behavior. The market prices flow back and forth like a tug of war between those who believe and expect the market to go up, and consequently buy, and those that believe the market will go lower, and consequently sell. If there is no balance between the two forces, one side will gain dominance over the other. As prices move farther and farther away from the weak group, the emotional pain of admitting they are wrong will be in direct conflict with their need to avoid losses. Eventually, one by one they will lose faith in their position and liquidate their trade, adding to the momentum of the dominant force. The prevailing force will continue to dominate until there is a general perception that prices have gone too far and are out of line with other related factors. The members of the dominant force will have to switch sides to liquidate their positions, creating momentum in the opposite direction. As individuals, if we do not have the strength actually to move prices in the direction we would most benefit from, then the next best thing is to learn to identify and align ourselves with the side that is As individuals, if we do not have the strength actually to move prices in the direction we would most benefit from, then the next best thing is to learn to identify and align ourselves with the side that has established dominance until the balance shifts, and again align ourselves with the side establishing the strength. As prices move back and forth in this tug of war, it creates an ebb and flow that is easily identifiable in price charts or point and figure charts. These charts will show us in graphic terms how the forces interact and counteract. They are a visual representation of traders' beliefs in the future and the intensity in which they have been willing to act on those beliefs. If, For example, a market has been making consistently higher highs and higher lows. To determine what is likely to happen next, ask yourself the following questions. 1. What kind of price action will sustain the buyer's beliefs that they can make more money? 2. When are sellers likely to come into the market in force? 3. Where are old buyers likely to take profits? Where are old sellers likely to lose faith in their positions and bail out? 4. What would have to happen for buyers to lose faith? What would have to happen to draw new buyers into the market? You can answer all these questions by identifying certain significant reference points where buyers and/or sellers' expectations are likely to be raised and where they are likely to be disappointed if they don't get their way. Actually, all this works quite nicely in the typical market behavior patterns and price formations with which we are all familiar. So, we are going to look at the psychological makeup of some of these typical patterns. However, before we do, I want to cover a few more definitions. Market behavior. The market's behavior can be defined as the collective action of individuals acting in their own self-interest to profit from future price movement while simultaneously creating that movement as an expression of their beliefs about the future. Behavior patterns result from the collective actions of individual traders doing one of three things: initiating positions, holding positions, and liquidating positions. What will cause a trader to enter the market? A belief that he can make money and that the current state of the market offers an opportunity to enter into a trade at a price level that is higher or lower than the price at which it can be liquidated. What will cause a trader to hold a position? A sustained belief that there is still potential for profit in the trade. What will cause a trader to liquidate a trade? A belief that the market no longer provides an opportunity to make money. This would mean in a winning trade that the market no longer has the potential to move in a direction that will allow the trader to accumulate additional profits, or that the risk of staying in the trade is too great in relation to the potential for additional profit. In a losing trade, the trader believes that the market no longer has the potential to move in a direction that will allow him to recover his losses, or the trade was a calculated risk in which a predetermined loss level was set in advance. If you look at any price chart, you notice that over a period of time, prices will form patterns in a very symmetrical fashion. These kinds of symmetrical-looking price patterns are not an accident. They are a visual representation of the struggle between two opposing forces, traders squaring off, so to speak, taking sides and then having to switch sides to liquidate their trades. Significant reference points. Now, what you would be looking for in these charts are significant market reference points. These are defined as anything that causes traders' expectations to be raised about the possibility of something happening. They are points where a large numbers of traders have taken opposing positions. Based on those expectations, they will continue to hold a position in the belief that the expectation will be fulfilled, and most important, they will likely liquidate a position as a result of the expectation being unfulfilled. Significant reference points are places where the opposing forces, traders with opposite beliefs about the future, have taken a stand, where they have, in their minds, prescribed for the market very limited ways for it to behave. An either/or situation. The more significant the reference point, the greater the effect traders will have on prices, as the balance of power will shift dramatically between the two opposing forces at these points. These expectations about what the market will do, projected into price levels, are especially significant because both sides, buyers and sellers, have decided in advance their degree of importance, where one trader is taking one position, betting the market can't or won't do something, and the trader taking the opposite side of the trade is betting that it will. So, reference points are price levels where many traders on one side of the market are very likely to give up their beliefs about the future, whereas the other side will have their beliefs about the future reinforced. It is where each side expects the market to confirm what they believe to be true. You could say it is a place where the traders' expectations about the future and the future actually meet. This means for one side, in their minds, that the market will make them winners, their beliefs will be validated. All the traders on the other side, however, will be made losers. They will feel the market took something away from them and will naturally be disappointed. I want to point out here that the objective observer doesn't care one way or the other. She would just be looking for signs and opportunities. The greater the expectation traders have about something happening, the less tolerance they have for disappointment. On a collective basis, if you have a whole group of traders who expect something to happen and it doesn't, they will have to trade from the opposite direction of their original trade to get out of their position. On the other hand, the winners had their beliefs validated, consequently leaving fewer and fewer traders available to let the losers out of their trades. The losers will have to compete among one another for the limited supply of traders willing to take the other side of the trade, the side they originally believed would be successful. For example, if buyers are the losers, they will need other traders to buy from them to get out of their positions. All this activity will result in a great deal of movement in one direction. Balance areas. J. Peter Steidlmayer and 𝐂𝐫𝐞 in their book Markets and Market Logic refer to a value area, where they discovered that the majority of trading activity on any given day takes place in a normal bell curve distribution pattern. This is very easy to see day after day when you organize trading activity so that you can see how price corresponds with time. I don't want to get into a lengthy discussion of their methods of organizing market data, which I recommend you learn, other than to distinguish between what they call a value area and what I call a balance area. Steidlmayer and 𝐂𝐫𝐞 say that most of the trading volume takes place within a specific price range because that range is what the market has established as a fair price representing the value of whatever is being traded. The distinction I want to make is that the majority of traders don't specifically relate to a fair price or value, they relate to comfort. What gives them comfort is doing what everyone else is doing. In a balance area, traders are basically absorbing each other's orders or energy, their beliefs about the future expressed in the form of energy. When I say that traders relate to comfort, I mean some degree less of the fear they normally feel. Most of the trades take place in a value or balance area because it is where most of the traders feel the least fear, somewhere in the middle of the trading range between an established high or low. This is precisely why there are fewer trades outside the value or balance area and why, as Steidlmayer and 𝐂𝐫𝐞 say, these trades represent the best opportunities to make money, to buy or sell away from value. And that is why these are the scariest trades to make, because the trader who can make them is all alone. There is no safety in numbers. There are traders who relate to value by making comparisons between various interrelated contracts in the cash markets. There are the professional commercial or institutional arbitrage traders who will put on or take off positions based on sophisticated mathematical formulas that determine the present value of something as it relates to something else. Otherwise, the majority of traders don't have the slightest concept of value. The more time the market spends at a certain price or in a price range, the more balance, agreement, or comfort there is in the market. Traders are absorbing each other's orders, and nobody is willing to bid the price higher or offer the price lower. Eventually someone will enter the market who doesn't agree with everyone else and believes there is a possibility for the prices to move much higher or lower. This person or group of traders will basically upset the balance with their buying or selling activity. If their activity is forceful enough, it will set off a series of chain reactions as it causes other traders, who are either holding positions or watching the market for opportunities, to confront these new conditions. If the balance is tipped in favor of the buyers, for example, it may attract new buyers into the market, creating more buying force and, hence, more disequilibrium. This may cause the traders who are holding short positions to liquidate. To do that, they will need to be buyers, leaving fewer and fewer sellers willing to take the other side of the trades the buyers want to get into and the old sellers want to get out of. These traders will compete among one another for the dwindling supply of sellers, bidding the price higher and higher to make it more attractive for someone to sell. While these traders are in their own little bidding war, they usually lose sight of the fact that the rest of the world is watching what is going on. There could be a trader who is looking to put on a massive hedge to protect the value of an investment portfolio or crop. He is observing this price action from a completely different perspective than the traders on the floor. The floor traders are just concerned with getting their share and not missing out on the opportunity these rapidly rising or falling prices represent. The hedger, on the other hand, is looking at the price rise as an unexpected gift. The rally could have provided much higher prices than he anticipated for locking in the value of something he already owns. So the commercial trader decides to put on a hedge. And you can assume if one commercial thinks the price is good, others will too. Anyway, if the hedger has an order he perceives to be big enough to stop the rally, he will give instructions to the floor brokers handling his order to do scale in selling, the purpose being to get as much of the order sold as possible without ruining the rally. However, it won't take long for the other floor traders to figure out what is going on. They are very aware of which floor brokers fill orders for big commercial and institutional customers. Once they find out someone big is in the market selling into the rally, few if any of the floor traders will go against them by continuing to buy. No one wants to get caught at the top. So as each group of traders finds out who is selling, they will all try to reverse their positions by selling, and the cycle starts all over again. Watching this happen from the outside of the pit, it would seem that the reversal is instantaneous, but it isn't. It occurs in waves, as the information about who is selling spreads from the source outward, very much like the waves that result from throwing a stone in a pond. This leads me to the observation that few traders have any concept of value. They know that price movement creates an opportunity to make money, and it can just as easily take the money away if they don't know what they are doing. If the price trades within a certain range for a period of time, traders will become comfortable with that balance area, making it easier for the trader to trade. As prices move out of the balance area, fewer traders will participate because of what they perceive as more risk than they are comfortable with. Highs and lows. Probably the most prominent of these significant reference points are previous highs and lows. If prices are moving steadily higher, buyers will begin to anticipate whether or not prices can penetrate the last high, and sellers will be looking for another top. In the mind of the seller, that last top, or other tops in the distant past, was a place where the market met enough resistance to stop the rally. In other words, enough traders thought the price was expensive the last time it was there, and they will begin to anticipate whether the same will happen again. Both buyers and sellers will have raised expectations about the likelihood of the market doing one of two possible things, making new highs or failing to make new highs. As the market approaches this high, if some of them are willing to bid the price past it to some significant level, it could make believers out of other traders who are on the sidelines. If these new traders come into the market as buyers, it will add to the upward momentum, possibly causing old sellers to bail out of their positions. This will also add to the upward momentum of price movement. Support and resistance. In a falling market, support is a price level where buyers entered the market or old sellers liquidated their shorts with enough force to keep prices from going any lower. In a rising market, resistance is a price level where sellers entered the market or old buyers liquidated their longs with enough force to keep prices from going any higher. Support and resistance levels are significant reference points because many traders recognize support and resistance on charts and believe in their significance. That statement may seem redundant to some people, but it really illustrates a very important point about the nature of the markets, traders acting on their belief in future value. All beliefs eventually become self-fulfilling prophecies. If enough traders believe in the significance of support and resistance, and demonstrate their belief by making trades at those levels, they are in effect fulfilling their own beliefs about the future. As observers, if we know that each side, in the perpetual tug of war between buyers and sellers, expects one thing to happen, then we will know who will be the winner, who will be the loser, what they will likely do in each case, and how it will affect the balance between the two forces. For example, if buyers are bidding up a market, causing prices to rise, and all of a sudden many traders are willing to sell for less than the last price, or one trader comes into the market with a big order to sell, causing an immediate price reversal, the price level at which the market stopped is resistance. Now, it really doesn't matter why the balance of forces shifted from buyers to sellers. Everybody will have his own reasons for what caused prices to reverse. All of them will usually be way beyond the simplest and most obvious reason, that enough traders were displaying a strong enough conviction in their belief in future value to stop the upward price momentum and create downward price momentum. What is really important about this, however, is that many traders will remember the market reversed at that price level. As a result, that price will then have a degree of significance in the minds of those traders who experienced the reversal. This first reversal is a top. What we don't know is whether it will remain a top, how long it will take before it is challenged again, or whether it will ever be challenged again. If the buyers are dominant enough to bid the market back up to the previous high, they will consider this second attempt a test and begin to anticipate whether or not prices can exceed the previous high. The only way that can happen is if these higher prices actually attract additional traders into the market on the buy side because they believe it is an opportunity to buy low relative to the future. Floor traders are especially aware of whether or not new traders are being attracted into the market from off the floor and act on this information. For the sake of this example, if the market reversed very strongly the last time prices approached this level, there will be many traders who will think it will probably reverse again. As a result, they may act on their belief about the low probability of prices trading beyond the last high and thereby prevent it from happening. If more traders are willing to act on the belief that it won't in relation to those who act on the belief that it will, then prices will stop again. Technically, once the market tests a previous high or low and fails to penetrate, you then have a defined support and resistance area. Support and resistance are most easily identified in point and figure charts because they graphically represent price movement and reversals. Once support and resistance are established and identified, it can be very easy to trade by putting your orders on either side of the support or resistance line. For example, if over the last 2 weeks, every time the bonds rallied to 95 to 25, then fell back significantly to some support level, like 94 to 10, what I have just described is a support and resistance zone, commonly referred to as a trading range. The significance of either end of the zone would be determined by how many times prices rallied to 95 to 25 and failed to penetrate, and how many times prices fell to 94 to 10 and failed to penetrate. Obviously, the more attempts and failures, the more weight these points will have in the minds of the traders who experience these tests and subsequent failures. For an objective observer with no bias toward any particular direction, trading ranges can be very easy ways to make money. As the market approaches 95 to 25, put in an order to sell somewhere around 95 to 21. Since we know the markets are not precise, you don't want to put your order exactly at the upper end of the range, because each time the market makes an attempt to penetrate, there will be many traders who will be anticipating a failure. As a result, they will start selling early and the price may never get to 95 to 25 for you to get filled, if you had placed your order there. Also, put an order in the market to stop and reverse, buy too, possibly around 95 to 31. Each circumstance will be different. In this example, the 6 ticks that I have given the market to define itself may not be enough. The object would be to put your orders in a place where the highest probability is that it will continue in the direction of your trade. If the market trades to 95 to 31, it still may not be enough for old sellers to become disappointed and bail out of their positions en masse, causing prices to rise even further. This trade will work if the resistance level has a high degree of significance in the minds of enough traders for them to act and sell against it in relation to those who are willing buy. Each time the market approaches this area, traders will expect either one of 2 possible things to happen. The market will penetrate, or it will fail again. In any case, the price move that results will be significant because one side of the market will be disappointed. And if we know what will validate and disappoint each group, then we can determine how they will likely behave and thereby affect the balance of the market. Since the market can display billions of combinations of behaviors from one point to the next, significant reference points like support and resistance narrow those behaviors down to 2 likely possibilities. By putting your order on both sides, you can take advantage of the situation, regardless of what happens. Support becomes resistance and resistance becomes support. Many traders have read or heard that old support becomes resistance and old resistance becomes support. This bit of market insight is valid for some very sound psychological reasons. If resistance has been established at 95 to 25, it is because there were enough traders who sold at that price to make it resistance. In fact, it would probably be the same group of traders who sold at 95 to 25 each time the market approached that price. So, every time the market rallied up to 95 to 25 and sold off, it made winners out of all those traders who chose to sell at or near that price. As a result, 95 to 25 will take on a great deal of significance in the minds of the traders who were successful. Each subsequent time they are successful will only strengthen their belief and faith in that price level. Now, the prices rally up to 95 to 25 again, maybe for the 4th or 5th time, and like the last time, you will have a group of traders who believe in that resistance level and will sell against it. Only this time the buyers are very strong on the way up and continue to buy right on through the resistance level. All the traders who choose to sell at 95 to 25 are now faced with having to deal with a losing trade. Some will get out with a small loss, others will hang on hoping the market will come back. In any case, the market invalidated their beliefs about the future, and they are suffering considerably. They had faith in 95 to 25, and in their minds the market betrayed them. If the market happens to come back to 95 to 25 after rallying for several days, how do you think the group of traders who sold at 95 to 25 the last time, the ones who believe they were betrayed, are going to behave? First, the traders who were hanging on in hopes of the market coming back will bail out as soon as they are close to being made whole. They are so grateful for getting their money back, there is no way they will stay in that trade regardless of what the possibilities are for additional profits. They will have to be buyers to liquidate their shorts and will be all too happy to end their suffering. The traders who originally cut their losses when the market blew through 95 to 25 won't consider selling at that price again because of the emotional pain of being wrong the last time they sold at that price. I am not saying they will in turn be buyers at that level, but they are very likely not to sell. The overall effect this will have on the balance of the market is to take away from the existing pool of available sellers at 95 to 25, old resistance, thereby causing the balance to be tipped in favor of the buyers. Hence, old resistance becomes support, and old support becomes resistance for the same reasons. Trends and trend lines. Trends, a series of higher highs and higher lows, or lower highs and lower lows over a period of time, work because there aren't enough sellers to absorb the number of buyers competing with each other to get into the market during that period of time. Adding to this buying force will be old sellers at lower levels who finally lose faith and bail out of their positions. They will do this in significant numbers when the prices penetrate what they believe to be significant reference points. Keep in mind that trends are a function of time. The next tick up could be defined as a one-tick trend. How long will the imbalance between buyers and sellers last? In an upward trend,